Emmanuel Macron's 18th visit to Africa as president has come to an end. The French leader has wrapped up his four-nation tour in the DRC after announcing that Paris will be contributing to a new EU humanitarian aid effort for the conflict-hit East. Macron also said that all sides in this restive pocket have backed a new truce plan, which is meant to come into force next week.
All sides expressed clear support for the ceasefire scheduled on Tuesday. M23 representatives who went to see President Lourenço are also committed to this. We'll now see whether each side is true to their word. But what gives me the most reason to be optimistic is that all those I have spoken to adhere to this plan.
For more on this story, we can bring in Douglas Yates, who's with me here on set. He's an expert in African affairs and a professor of political science at the American Graduate School in Paris. Thank you for being with us here once again on France 24. We heard there from the French leader talking about this new ceasefire plan for the east of the DRC. Just how hopeful should we be that calm might be brought there?
Well, I think another ceasefire could be brought into place. There was one, and then the violence sparked up again 2 years ago. So the status quo is that the M23 appears to be on the offensive. If he's managed to cut a deal with the M23, it means that the diplomatic work he did in the background with Kigali, with Rwanda, who are understood to be the supporters of M23, has worked.
Let's talk now about this EU humanitarian aid plan, which Macron is also supporting. He's saying that Paris is coughing up 36 million euros for that. What concretely is the French government doing, though, to help?
Well, first of all, it's getting in air supplies. You know, the Pope wanted to visit this region during his visit to Democratic Republic of Congo, and they were incapable of providing the background security, of getting in the power. So air support and humanitarian supplies, getting in there, medical supplies for the women who have been raped, food supplies for the people who are hungry, and essential supplies as well for trying to reconstruct villages that have been ravaged by this movement.
Now, Macron is due to arrive back on French soil overnight. If we look back at this entire week of visits to African nations, can we say that Macron's trip has been a success?
It has, and in many ways it's been more conventional than some of his past trips. He's gone to see classic French allies. All French presidents would go to Gabon. He met with both the Gabonese president Ali Bongo and the Congolese president Denis Sassou Nguesso. Both of those are in the French camp. But also, he's managed to finally pull the veil away and show France's deep involvement in Angola, which is one of France's most important trading partners on the African continent because of Total, because of oil. So I think that this trip he's managed to avoid making any quacks, making any statements that were shocking or could be used against him, and it's also completely thrown a drape over Marine Le Pen's visit to Senegal.
Much has been made recently about the pullout, though, of French service personnel on the ground in several former French colonies. Going forward, does this mean that these regions might be less safe?
Yes. France withdrawing its troops from the Sahel region will make the region less safe. But the regimes aren't really concerned about that. Those military coups right now, those leaders want to install themselves in power. For that, they have Russian backing. France, with its demands for human rights and its desires to protect civilians, we're just getting in the way.
On the streets of certain areas, I'm talking maybe about Kinshasa here, we've seen anti-French protests taking place. Is this a growing feeling across the continent, this anti-French feeling?
Well, there is a rhetoric, an anti-French rhetoric, which is being spread on social media, on the internet, and which is contagious among the population. But it's not necessarily shared by the rulers of these countries. And so Macron's focus in a traditional pattern was on leader-to-leader diplomacy. And there you see a lot of support for France, which seems to be a frequentable power, although one that's often unpopular on the street.
If we look ahead, are there any hurdles that we should be looking out for or thinking about in the future relationship between France and the continent?
Yeah, well, in addition to the image problem, France does need to start to behave in a way that's less visibly neo-colonial. That is, it's time for France to act behind the scenes. This is a cycle, as one of the Élysée members had told the AFP, this is a cycle where France will act behind the scenes. So Macron's visit might be one of his last to the continent.
Okay, Douglas Yates from the American Graduate School here in Paris. Thank you very much.